Are we opening with the story about your pants?
Can you see my nuts?
I can see your nut. At least one of them.
Can you see my nuts? Can you see my nuts? Can you see my nuts?
Right, you ready?
Can we get like a big like zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out of Mike's nuts, like to open the show?
Totally uncomfortable.
Nice pants.
I watched. That reminds me of Inception from South Park. See that episode? Inception. As he's
Based on
explaining stuff.
Inception?
Yeah,
I don't know if I remember that one.
that was really good.
Did you watch the Tea Party one yet?
Which one?
The South Park. No, sorry, the Family Guy. Family
No, I
Guy.
didn't
The Tea
watch
Party episode.
No, I didn't watch
I
that
think
yet.
you would just eat that episode up.
It's probably. I don't know. I'll have to watch it and see. All right, we're here. This is Barbell Shrugged, Strength and Conditioning Podcast. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with the other hosts, Doug Larson,
You bet.
Chris Moore.
Yo.
We have our guest Vaughn Rawls,
Hi.
ultra marathoner.
This sounds very fancy, doesn't it?
It does.
It does sound.
Some people run marathons. I run ultra marathons,
Which means
is
that
like a normal marathon, just so much harder. I don't even want to talk to you who run just marathons.
I also prefer endurance athlete.
Endurance athlete. Okay.
But not like the Lance Armstrong kind.
I'm
We can
I'm
talk
clean,
about that.
man.
You saying Lance Armstrong's not clean, bro? Are you saying he's guilty? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying I don't care.
Oh, okay.
I've been getting some interesting feedback in regard to the podcast that we did with Dr. Andy Galpin. I think that was number 19. The one I wasn't here for. I've been getting a lot of questions about the references to the leg power studies he's talking about and in regard to heart health. So if you want to see those references, go to fitter.tv, click on Barbell Shrug, click on that specific blog post, and in the comments, I posted the references. So I've had a lot of people going, that sounds really interesting, but where are the references? So they're posted down there for you to see. So
lest you think we were just making shit up on this podcast. The answer is no.
Yeah, I mean,
we have references for what we're talking about.
I realize a lot of people are watching this on YouTube or listening to it on iTunes, so they may not be visiting the website and getting all the information. So go there to make sure you're getting all the information. Make sure to check out the shop. See the seminars that are popping up. Chris Moore's Simple Strength. Quite a few people have bought those, and we've gotten some really positive feedback. We got one from the UK and one from New Zealand. So worldwide.
Global harmonization.
Americans better start buying it up, or those New Zealanders will pass us up. They're going to be
They'll
stronger.
be winning all the golds in the Olympics.
All right, so Vaughn, let's introduce you a little bit. Your
Okay.
story. You did not start off training as an endurance athlete. You started training just to be
you started
more
as a fat
hardcore.
guy.
I started as a fat guy. That's,
Yeah, you're
that's
like,
a true statement.
you want to make like a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And then you came and visited us, and then kind of tell people like about your journey a little bit.
I started, I was probably 200 pounds, maybe a little more, really fat, and just got tired of that whole situation, and luckily found the perfect
Sick
gym.
and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, exactly. And started training CrossFit Memphis in the old location, and then I lost all my weight, and I got down to like 170 pounds.
Where'd you start at?
200, 205, something like
Okay.
that. And like all
How long did
fat.
that take? Drop 35 pounds like that?
Probably 4 or 5 months.
Oh, really?
6
I didn't realize it was that
months.
fast.
It was
That's
It was
fast.
fast. I've only been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I've known you guys 3 years. So.
Okay.
In October, actually. October the 16th was my first workout at CrossFit Memphis in 2009.
Okay.
Vaughn is a great example of a compliant client.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who comes in and says, "What should I do?" and I tell him what to do, and he does it, and he gets excellent results. I find that most
Crazy
people
how that works.
who don't get the best results in the world is because they're not very compliant. They're not like checking in every week and going, "What do I do next?" The clients that
Right.
come back every week and go, "What should I do next? I'm doing this. What should I do next?" And I keep telling them next step, and they just kill it. So compliance might have something to do with it.
Well, I was in a unique situation in that I had never trained like to be a runner. I never trained to be. I didn't know anything about training really, So
were you doing any training before you came to
well,
us?
not really.
Just
I
kinda
did. I did the couch to 5K thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was out walking and running. Like it's that whole thing is walk for 90 seconds, run for 60 or whatever. And so that
Is that a program?
yeah, it's
okay.
a pretty popular program.
Oh, really? I never heard of
Couch
that
to
one.
5K. Yeah,
Me neither.
Most people that do 5Ks for the first time follow that program.
Oh, wow.
So it's like an easy thing that you can just do.
Okay.
So they'll put you out there like 3 or 4 times a week walking with a mix of walking and running for like 30 minutes basically.
People can just Google couch to 5K and find that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it gets a little boring. Like I did it for like a month or 2 and got to my first 5K, but I wasn't following the program anymore. Like I was out there walking one day and I was like, well, I could probably run a little more than 60 seconds.
Sure. But it got you off the couch?
Yeah. Well, it got
Okay.
me off the couch, but I never broke like 30 minutes in a 5K. In fact, I ran the Gibson Guitar 5K back, I guess maybe 2007 or 8, and I was destroyed at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like at the end of it, there's like this hill that comes up from Riverside, and it's like that nasty hill, Bill Street.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I'm talking about? It goes under the bridge.
Yeah.
So at the end of that race, I was just completely toast.
Yeah.
Like it was awful, and that probably finished like 30 minutes.
I bet at the end of that race,
So-
you would never thought a couple years later you'd be running races over 10 times as long.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, what's the longest race you've ran now?
50 mile.
50 miler. And how many kilometers is that compared to a 5K?
How many kilometers? 50K, 670.
70 something. So you're looking at 14, 15 times as long as your 5K.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
5K is 3 miles.
Okay.
20 times.
5K is 3.1.
I'm not good at math. Leave me
Well,
alone.
17 times as long.
10 is 30 miles.
Okay.
So 10 times a 5. Anyway,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Math magic with
It is a long way, Doug. 50 miles is a long.
It is a long
CTP
way.
this in
We did
search
one
actual
marathon one
distances.
time, and that just destroyed me. I can't imagine running almost twice as long.
Yeah, that took away all my will to do that
Oof.
ever again.
Yeah. So actually, no, I did not start out. I didn't even really want to run. I mean, I was running to try to lose weight, and it just wasn't working. And so that's when I got frustrated and came here or to CrossFit Memphis faction, and started training. Rob Connor kind of pushed me into running. I was like, I think I might go do a 10K, and he was like, "No, you're going to go do a 50K." I was like, "What? You're crazy. Who is this guy?"
I like it.
Rob's
Raising
nuts.
expectations.
And then he's like, "Yeah, and then after that, you'll go run a 50-mile race on the beach."
Rob was
There you
also
go.
the coach that I left for a weekend. I come back and everyone was like, we ran 10K and then we did other stuff for the WOD. I'm like, what?
Right, I remember that.
People still talk about it. It was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. So anyway, after I guess it was probably three months or so, I ran my first half marathon, my first 10K, then half marathon, and then moved up to the marathon. We did St. Jude. We ran my first marathon, which was awesome. I finished that in 3:50.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good for your first.
That's a great time for
Yeah.
the first time.
That's very
Yeah,
respectable.
I mean, most people don't break 4 hours.
Yeah, we know.
And how'd you feel at the end of that marathon compared to the end of the 5K you were talking about earlier?
Well, I was pretty wasted.
Were you wrecked?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's to be
What does that mean
expected.
for you? Like when I said after the marathon, I felt wrecked. Like my feet feel like they got like beat with a hammer. Like they felt terrible.
Well,
That's what I thought. But people feel all kinds of different.
No, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I was in the gym like the next day.
Oh yeah.
So I was in the like you probably don't remember, but you made me come to the gym like the next. You were like, "Oh, we'll open gym on Sunday. Come."
Well, I had you do like some recovery stuff that was. It wasn't hardcore training. It was
No, right.
work through full range of motion. I mean, you just did 26 miles of really small range of motion over and over again.
Right.
Let's get your hips and everything moving again. Nothing hard. Nothing.
No.
heavy.
We I was in there. We did hit the foam roller,
Or
and
mobility work.
we did some kettlebell swings, and that was it. I mean,
Okay.
it was,
All right. So
Anyway.
were you sore at all, or were you,
I
how'd
was,
your joints
I was a
feel?
little sore. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as the more races I've done,
Yeah.
like for instance, the second 50 miler I did this past April, I felt great.
Yeah.
When I was done, I felt great. And last year, or the first one,
Weird.
He didn't run fast enough.
That's
the first one I did, you were probably right. I was a wreck at the end of it. I was emotionally wrecked,
Yeah.
physically wrecked.
Yeah.
I was coming across the finish line like almost crying. I was like, I can't believe I just did this. You know? And I didn't think I was going to make it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think I was going to finish that race.
Which race is this?
The first 50-mile race I did.
Oh, okay.
You thought you were gonna die?
No, I didn't think I
I
was
don't
going to.
think I'm gonna make it.
I didn't think I was going to. No, I didn't think I was going to die, but I didn't think I was going to finish the race. I mean,
Or if you don't make certain checkpoints by a certain time, they tell you can't go on anymore.
right. And if you don't finish in 13 hours at this particular race, Wichita,
I felt that way running 400-meter sprints before. I'm not gonna make it.
I'm not gonna make it. Just leave me here.
Send word to my family.
anyway, yeah, if you don't finish in 13 hours at this particular race, you don't get the medal. You know, you didn't really finish. So it was important to get under that mark for me anyway. And at the end of it, I wasn't the last person to finish the race, but I was pretty close to the end. And like there's like random people, but at this time walking through the park on the trail, like a husband and wife and their 2 kids. And I like come up behind them and I'm like, you're kind of in my way. Could you move so I can finish this race? But so it was that. So I was, you know,
Call this recreation.
right. And so,
That's right.
And so fast forward a year later,
I run for fun.
And at the same point, I was strong. I felt good. You know, finished the race really, really strong and ready. You know, coming to the finish line, my son was there. He was running with me. He was like, "I beat you." So it was awesome. Like I felt great. I felt strong. And it's like, somebody give me a beer. You know, I feel good. And I couldn't wait to get back to the gym. So I'm not saying I didn't feel it. I mean, I felt bad, but I didn't feel near as bad as I did the year before. So
That's good.
and I was an hour faster. So
An hour faster?
yeah.
Wow.
Very nice. But you felt like you could have gone harder. You felt really good. So you probably could have gone a little
I
bit
probably
faster.
should have gone harder. That's something I'm
I'm
trying.
just learning the pace of a 50 miler. That's got to be pretty difficult to figure out, you know? I didn't go over this at the very beginning, so I'll do it now. Obviously, we're going to be talking about endurance a bit since we have Vaughn as a guest. But we're going to be talking about endurance nutrition, low carb for endurance athletes, carb cycling, and then we'll talk about training specifically for endurance. And then how to train for like ultra marathons without getting injured. I guess that's a common thing. Is a lot of people are training and just getting hurt during training. So that's no good. Let's go ahead and roll right into endurance nutrition. We have a pretty strong paleo philosophy at Faction, and what we promote it pretty heavily. We're not 100% paleo, in that we still our post-workout shakes, some of our supplementation is not paleo, so it's whey protein, Gatorade, things like that. So it's not that we just kind of think, oh, paleo is the end all be all, but for the most part, it's really good because it's promoting really high quality meat, high quality protein, high quality carbs, and high quality fats. So it really has nothing to do with, it has everything to do with just finding the best foods and nothing to do with if it fits into the paleo category or not. So
We're not following a cult mentality where we just shut up and do it because
Like-
HQ says it's good.
well, actually, HQ doesn't.
Okay, well,
They promote the zone, which nobody does.
that's
but-
stupid shit. I'd say why it's stupid. If you're sitting around in your kitchen, like measuring out units of massive amounts of units like strawberries. Oh, I need 5 blocks of strawberries. Instead of just eating some strawberries, you're an asshole.
Right.
It's a huge mountain of
Just
strawberries.
eat some strawberries, okay? Is that
Agreed.
not enough for you?
I never counted calories or measured my food or anything like that.
No, it should
Ever.
be. It should be intuitive enough once
don't even-
you understand some basic philosophy, like filling your plate full of veggies, and if there's a little corner, packing the rest of that full of good meat and some fat, then you're good to go.
Yeah. So
Way too much time thinking about this stuff, and way too little time just training.
yep. I got a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people make that. That's a common mistake, is people overanalyzing training and nutrition and not just doing it. Just go lift the weight. Stop thinking about why you're doing it. Like, that's my job. Your job is to lift the weight. In regard to the lower carb stuff, you do paleo, which is technically lower carb than what most Westerners and what most endurance athletes do. I get a lot of pushback initially from a lot of endurance athletes that come in the gym. They're like, where do you get the carbs from? So you eat low carb pretty much all the time. It's just meat and veggies.
Right.
Eat some fruit too, which
Right.
is a little bit higher in carbohydrate. But then most of your nutrition for carbohydrate intake is happening during and after training.
That's right. So
What do you do for that?
Well, I do take goo during the race. I have a.
What is that, dude?
It's calories, really. I think is the. It's
It's
like
it's like
It's
those
like
little,
sugar syrup.
yeah, those little
it-
packages of like condensed
it's like
Gatorade
pudding.
you shove in your mouth.
Yeah.
Ugh, dude.
Yeah, it sometimes it's nasty.
And that's during. So you're not doing goo when you go run for an hour.
No,
You're doing
no,
goo. This is race.
race, and if I'm training if I run more than like 13, 15 miles,
Trying
Right.
not to make goo
Yeah.
jokes right now.
not to make one.
I'm trying not to make goo jokes.
So probably if you're training for longer than 2 hours,
Yeah,
that's when you start breaking into
right,
that type of stuff.
right. Well, yeah, you just. I guess you need it. I mean, I don't really.
So
know.
right now it might be
Like,
important to point out that if you are a recreational runner and you go out for a mile run on Sunday morning, you probably don't need to be eating goo.
Right, that's true. Yeah, yeah,
It's like what most people think of Gatorade as. I'm thirsty, and I went for a walk, so I'll drink 82 ounces of Gatorade because that's what you do, right?
right. Well,
And that's not what you do.
no.
Well, this is interesting because you're like, I guess, but every athlete's going to be different. There's some. You sent me an article. Some athletes can eat almost no carbohydrate,
Right,
Very,
no,
very
I-
low carb for a 100-mile race and do
Right.
really well.
Oh yeah.
But most people would not. So it's going to be different for person to person, and you're kind of probably still figuring out at what point you actually do need something
Right.
like
So
goo.
that's where I am now. So I when I first started running, I never did any of that kind of stuff. Like I had my workout shake. First marathon, halfway through, you were there to give me a workout shake, and that's what I needed. You know, and I grabbed a goo from like an aid station or something, just because somebody's standing there handing it out.
Yeah, and
So I
the,
didn't-
the shake I gave you is probably a 4-to-1 ratio of carbohydrate to whey protein, and it was Gatorade and whey protein.
Right.
That's all it was.
Right.
So it's probably somewhere around 80 grams of carbs and 20 grams of protein, and that probably made you feel like $1 million
Right.
halfway
So
through.
really, I mean, I get to that point where, God, I feel like crap. I should eat something, you know. So now I know when that's going to be coming. Like, so I know that like 8-9 miles, I should have eaten something, be it a goo or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something. I should have eaten some food. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So now I know, like my legs are about to start cramping. I should have eaten S-Cap or had some Gatorade.
What is that?
S-Cap.
S-Cap.
It's like a sodium pill.
Sodium pill.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is really interesting. I mean, this is something that you can only figure out through experience. I'm sure you've talked to other people and kind of find out when they do certain things.
Right.
And obviously you're going to respond. And do you find that you respond differently if the temperature is different? Like if it's dead heat in summer, is it different than like running in the winter? Or
I don't usually run in the summer.
okay.
I this year I went on a run in June at Shelby Forest, and it was horrible. And I swore
That makes sense.
I'm never going to do this again.
Based on my personal experience and empirical analyses, yes, it sucks to run in summer.
I get bit by a horse fly, and my legs swelled up, and it was awful.
Oh, man.
And I'm not going to do that again.
Okay. So what do you do for when you say you come in the gym and you do just CrossFit, or you're doing the program I gave you? You drink post-workout shake. What's that look like?
Yeah, it's a scoop away. I guess it's probably 35 grams of protein and very small amount of Gatorade.
Okay.
I think I don't know the exact grams, but
Like half a scoop,
like 1 to
or
1.
a third of a scoop.
Probably about 1-to-1.
third of a scoop maybe.
And then during your run training, you do more Gatorade or about the same?
About the same.
Okay. Yeah, and to note, the majority of his run training is extremely short duration, like 200s and 400s.
Yep.
So, and one long run on the weekend where you might be actually taking goo in on top of workout shakes and stuff.
If it's a long run.
It's a long run.
If it's like 15 or 20 miles, which I don't get to do that very much, but
Vaughn always wants to run more than I want him to run.
yeah.
So what's an example of the intervals you just talked about? The 200s and 400s?
I'll have him run, say, 8 200s with a 1 minute break in between each 200. Who's that? Oh, that's our time. And then 400s, he'll maybe run like between 4 and 8 400s with a 2 to 3 minute break in between each one.
Right. But these are on the same day that I'm also training.
Right.
Training in the morning, and then I'll do these after or in the evening or something.
So Vaughn's training program looks like he always has a strength component, some kind of speed component, and this is in the gym. A strength, speed, and then some kind of conditioning component. For it's a lot of it's very CrossFit-ish, not all of it. And then later on that day, so he does that 5 days a week, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays he'll go in the afternoons and run some really fast sprints, and then one day on the weekend he'll do a long run, and that could be anywhere between 5K and 20 miles.
Okay. So for the day, like the 5 day week program where he does the speed work, strength work, and all the other stuff you mentioned, you want to give again an example of that?
Sure. Right now we're really focused on strength, so he's doing more squatting. Like I'll have him squat before he does any kind of Olympic lift. An Olympic lift would be kind of like the speed power type stuff. So he's getting a lot of speed work on the track also, just to note that. So he might be doing power cleans or snatches or something like that. So he'll do a squat or a press or something like that first. Then he'll do an Olympic lift. And we've kind of been playing around. I've been playing a little bit around with doing Olympic lifts, say every minute on the minute. So something kind of a density training type approach on the Olympic lifts. And then
So like 70% for a double every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. That type of thing.
70% would be like you would do like a triple at 70% every minute on the minute for 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
So stuff like that. So stuff that's he's not going to reach like high peak power, but it's going to be close enough. So mostly working on speed and repetitive speed. So something that's going to be good for if he's running up a hill. So those squats and those Olympic lifts are going to help him to be faster at the end of the race, be faster up hills. He's noted many times that he'll hit a hill and everyone starts walking and he's like kind of trotting past them, which is nice.
And I'll say you should be squatting.
Yeah, I attribute that to his strength. That's definitely not an endurance issue. He has more capacity for putting out more power. So that probably has a little bit of nutrition as well. And then, he does a little bit of conditioning, and that's usually just to build up a lot of muscular endurance, so that make him more durable. So that's kind of how we approach training 5 days a week. And then he only runs 3 days a week. And 2 of those days that he's running, it's only 200s and 400s. He's running like 1 mile training on those 2 days. So he's running 2 miles of sprints a week, and then he might only run a 5K that weekend. So, compared to other ultramarathoners, that's really low volume.
So your
Super
total
low volume.
Your total road work is really, really, really incredibly small compared to just about anybody else who is training for any sort of race.
Yeah, and I noted last year, at the end of the year, like in December, all my running friends were posting on Facebook about, well, I got to 2,013 miles this year or whatever. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe I should calculate how many miles I ran. So I started thinking about it. And number one, I can remember every run that I did, right? The whole year.
Anything that wasn't a sprint. You're talking about like
anything that wasn't a sprint.
Yeah.
So I calculated up, and this includes a marathon, a 50K, and a 50 miler, and I only ran like 250 miles.
So you ran like 10% of what these other guys were running.
Right.
So that is pretty strong evidence that you don't have to put in multiple thousands of miles a year in order to be able to do well at an ultra marathon type competition.
I mean,
you would think that you'd have to at least practice more to do that. And this is clearly a case where that's completely not necessary.
Right.
Is it 100% optimal? I don't know, but considering your very well balanced set of adaptations, your ability to also, deadlift a lot of weight.
Right.
How many other people running 2,000 miles a year could deadlift even 300 pounds? I wonder if there's even any of them.
Very few. I mean, I don't care about winning the race. I don't really care that much about how fast it is or how fast I finish the race. But I find that I am competitive in my age group. Like I'm not going to win my age group, but I have been in races where I'm
in all fairness,
third,
it's not necessarily. You're also running against people who are really good runners because these aren't like small scale races, and there are not a ton of these competitions around the country. I would guess. So, if you're a really talented runner, so like going to a national level weightlifting competition, you're going to run into guys who are just really good runners. Mm-hmm. So there's no shame in not winning, of course. But if you can also not train like them, and also give up the skill to them and still do really well, that's saying quite a lot about your approach to training.
Right.
And I think that's really awesome.
And I'm not getting injured, which is a big deal.
No, that was one of the things that people.
It's almost like if you went to. Sorry
about.
To jump into, but it's almost like you went to USAW Nationals, and you told people, well, yeah, I trained for this by running, and I've lifted maybe 1,000 pounds this year total, and I placed 5 out of 7 people or whatever. That'd be really amazing.
Right. Well,
that'd be shockingly amazing. It's kind of what you're doing with running.
Well, I don't know that I placed that high.
Well, just as an example. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I'll tell people about that. You ran a 50K and then you ran a 50 miler last year, and you had you had logged 7 miles of running in between the 2 races, and they were like 2 months apart.
Right. That was
Tell that real quick.
It's amazing.
So we kind of made a big deal about that. James was with me on the race, and so he was telling everybody that he encountered. He was like, "Hey, you see that guy? He only ran 7 miles between. This is like February to April. So the 50K was in February, 50 miler in April, and I did a 7 mile run. And
you ran one time.
Once. I ran.
You ran once in like 2 or 3 months.
I ran
to
once.
prep for a 50 mile race.
Once, and I had set out to do more, but I was not feeling well. I was at Tour de Wolf, and like I got through 7 miles, and I just felt like crap. And I said, "Screw it, I'm going home. I don't feel like doing this." And I went home, and that was the only run I ended up doing. And so the race director at the end of the race...
So it wasn't even a good one. It was a completely shitty training session.
It was horrible. And the race director came over and she was like, "I do not recommend anybody running only 7 miles to do this. And I suggest before next year you add some mileage to your training."
Shut up.
Whatever.
Shut your face.
Wait, that was the one you made the little documentary off of?
Yeah.
A little documentary preview?
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah, I love that video, dude. If I'm ever just kind of like, I don't know, like kind of down about going out and training, like I need to like pump myself up a little bit, I can watch that video and be like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go train right now.
Oh yeah, I watch it like once a day.
Do you?
All the 1,500 views, they're all me.
It's a cool video.
CTP,
James did a good job with it.
Post some sort of link to that.
Yeah, well, we could probably edit some of that in.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break real quick, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about nutrition. We'll talk about carb cycling specifically, and then I think we kind of already touched on training for an ultra without injury, but we can get a little more into that. All right, guys.
All right.
Most people wouldn't attempt to run 50 miles. Sounds painful.
I was 200 pounds, all gut pretty much, and just got tired of it. I had been running a couple of 5Ks and just not doing very well, and at the end of the races I feel horrible.
Is it enjoyable?
No.
He's actually an exception to the rule as an endurance athlete.
I mean, it's just, you're pushing your body as far as you can. That's what it is. See how far you can go before you break.
The fact that we are driving to go run 50 miles is crazy. Like, if you would tell me this like 2 years ago, I'd have been like, you are nuts.
Vaughn is actually an endurance athlete that listens.
All right, go kick some ass! day. Woohoo! We love it. Love it.
She's insane. I don't understand it.
I feel like I train so hard and I work so hard and put in so much work. It's dumb if I didn't do something.
Where's the aid station?
Keep going.
Feel like I can finish. That's all that matters.
I wanted to be able to play with my kids, run up and down the stairs without getting winded.
There's a point at about mile 40 where it doesn't matter. It's all mental.
How old are you?
70.
70?
Yeah. Mountain's tough.
How far do you want to run today? To convince yourself that you can do this.
Right.
And I stopped after 7 miles.
He's kind of in the alien category. I would not recommend that for just anybody.
I don't know. Where is the end? It doesn't matter. It's fun, you know. If it stops being fun, then I guess that's when you stop.
Welcome back to Technique Wad. I'm Doug Larson. This is Vaughn Rawls. Vaughn's one of our faction endurance athletes. Vaughn went from being a regular old couch potato, not training at all, to eventually being able to barely run a 5K race, to a couple years later now being able to run 50-mile races like it's no big deal at all. Isn't that right, Vaughn?
That's right. That's right. I'm here today to talk about the pose method of running. It's something that's helped me over the last few years, I believe, avoid injury and just be a better runner overall. A lot of times you'll see runners, the traditional way of running is striking your heel. So when they're running, their heel is hitting the ground first, and that causes a lot of injuries, a lot of heel injuries, shin splints, knee problems, all kinds of things that you hear runners complain about. So the pose method has helped me avoid those kinds of injuries. And what the pose method of running is basically a way of running where you stay on the balls of your feet, and you're basically landing on the balls of your feet instead of heel striking first and causing all those problems. So I'm going to show you 3 drills today that I like to do that will help you understand more about what the pose method is and how you can learn to practice the pose method of running. So the first drill is a wall drill. And you find yourself a wall, standing with your back to it. And in this drill, your foot is going to come up, and the balls of your feet is just barely going to scrape the wall. So what you're doing in this drill is teaching yourself where your foot path actually needs to be, instead of heel striking and bringing yourself forward and doing all that work. You want your foot to come straight up underneath you and just barely tap that wall. That'll teach you where your foot needs to be when you're running. So what you're going to do is do 10 on each side. And then when you're done with 10 on each side, just finish out and just lean forward, finish out a run. You don't have to run far, 10 meters, 20 meters, but do that drill over 4 or 5 times, and that will help you know where your foot path needs to be instead of heel striking and trying to do all that work. The second drill is a ball foot hop. So you're just going to hop on your feet like you're jump roping. You have nice posture, keep your head up and chest high. Your knees are bent slightly, and you're just gonna, when you start hopping, just lean forward just a little bit. Don't break at the hips, just lean forward, and gravity is gonna move you forward. So that's gonna teach you how you're letting gravity do the work instead of, again, trying to do all the work yourself. You can let gravity do a lot of it. So just get
about 10 hops. And after 10 hops, just finish the run out again. Again, you don't have to go far. You just want to do that over 3 or 4 times. And that'll help you understand how you're letting gravity do the work. The third drill is my favorite drill. You can use the jump rope. This will teach you, the technique a little easier when you have a jump rope there in your way. You kind of have to get your legs out of the way. So it looks like this. You just skip rope like that. You're landing on the balls of your feet. And you just lean forward. And when you lean forward, you're going to start moving. You're not doing any work. Gravity's doing the work. And then you just drop the rope and finish the run out. Like so. So hopefully if you do those drills over and over 3 times a week, it will help you become a better runner and stop heel striking and learn how to run properly and decrease your chances of injury.
He posted, it was late the other night.
Yeah.
He posted on Twitter, like, was I the only kid in like the early 90s that was wearing Jinkos? And I was like, oh yeah, I had a pair.
I was all about some Jinkos back in the day.
And he goes, and he tweeted back, he was like, do you have any pictures? And I was like, no, I burned those. I had a pair, but I burned those pictures. They'll probably resurface if I run for office ever. Run for office, pictures of Jinkos coming out. He wore Jinkos. Oh, we can't vote for him.
Yeah, right. Everybody vote for you. They'd be like, that's what I did. He's just like me.
Only the cool people.
He understands my needs.
All right, we're back. We're gonna talk a little bit about. Actually, I want Doug to go into because he has a really excellent explanation of the different types of carbohydrates and how they react in your body. Uh-oh. And yeah, so
put me on the spot. I wasn't prepared for this.
That's how you perform best when I put you on the spot. That's what I heard.
I think it's the other way around.
It's the other way around. You're supposed to put me on the spot.
You don't like to rehearse things.
I hate rehearsal.
You get all flustered when you have to rehearse things. What are you going to say, Mike? I don't know. Just turn the camera on.
Do that. All right. So
okay, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that before we get into carb cycling, and then I'll we've already talked about carbohydrates during races and stuff like that. So I just kind of want people kind of think about carbs, and they hear carbs and think rice, bread, pasta. Mm-hmm. So I want you to talk a little bit about the type of carbs you might want to eat during, pre, during, and post workout and training and stuff like that.
Okay. If you're trying to stay paleo, you have your kind of well-sided, clean types of carbohydrates, your sweet potatoes and your quinoa. You're trying to avoid, the either regular potatoes, which really aren't too bad if you're just trying to get carbs or calories for your race. But you're trying to avoid, breads and pastas and rices and things like that. But during the actual race or during your training program, it's hard to actually be eating things. So obviously you want some type of drink. And as far as the carbohydrates you put in your drink, you have a couple of options. The easiest option is probably just regular old Gatorade. And the breakdown of sugars in Gatorade, I'm not 100% sure exactly how it breaks down percentage-wise, but it's got a little bit of glucose, a little bit of sucrose, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. Fructose people talk about being not the best thing to get a huge volume of. So if you're trying to stay super paleo and avoid fructose, then maybe Gatorade isn't the best solution for you.
Why would people want to avoid fructose? What's the danger of consuming too much fructose or too frequently?
Well, there's a lot of disease talk there, but as far as performance goes, fructose doesn't get stored as glycogen, as energy in your muscles the same way that glucose does. It'll go get stored in your liver first, and then it'll have to get converted to glycogen in your liver, and then it'll re-break back down into glucose, put back into circulation, and then it could be stored in your muscles. So it's kind of a roundabout process. So if you can get glucose straight in your bloodstream and then straight in your muscles, you'll recover a little bit better, and you'll have that energy available a little bit sooner. So if you can get more pure glucose during the race, I'm not sure what's in GU 100%. Do you know what's in GU as far as sugars go? But if you can get more
Not even trying, dude.
more pure glucose, it'll have a quicker reaction in your body. You can use that fuel sooner. So for that, you could just buy pure glucose and put it in your drink. It's not quite as sweet as fructose, so it probably won't taste quite as good.
Right.
Or you could get some type of starch. Waxy maize starch is just amylopectin, which is a very fast digesting type of starch. That's a good option too. Or you could get maltodextrin, which is similar to starch, but the glucose molecules aren't bound together as tightly, and so right when it gets in your stomach, it kind of just breaks down right into pure glucose right away. So the glycemic index of that is really, really high. But kind of in the end, all those things are pure glucose, and they're all good options. So pure glucose, waxy maize starch, or maltodextrin are all easy options because they're all kind of the same thing. They're all kind of just glucose in the end. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the reasons we suggest Gatorade a lot of times for post-workouts, it does have a combination of the types of sugars that they're going to break down at the speed that's most desired. The people at Gatorade kind of figured it out. I think is what we decided a long time ago. I think we looked it up a long time ago and was like, okay, Gatorade's good enough.
Yeah, it's good enough, and it's cheap. You can find it everywhere. If you want to get maltodextrin or waxy maize, you got to seek it out a little more than just going to buy Gatorade, which you can buy anywhere. And Gatorade tastes good, and it's got electrolytes in it also. And he was talking about...
I used to get it
unlike the water from the toilet.
I can't say the word electrolytes without thinking of Brondo.
I used to get maltodextrin from a brew your own beer supply website. I forget the name of it. But you get a giant container of it for far less than if you tried to go to a sports supplement company, obviously.
So maltodextrin and glucose is in Roctane goo, which is what I take.
Yeah, okay. That's really good then.
Actually, maltodextrin is kind of an interesting thing because it's just glucose molecules hydrogen bonded together, which is like a very weak bond. Like I said, once you eat it, it just basically falls apart in your stomach. They can market it as a complex carbohydrate. And so you'll look at like a lot of weight gainers. It'll say like only 5 grams of sugar, and then you look at
it's all sugar.
You look at the actual ingredients. It say carbohydrates 106 per serving, and then 5 grams of sugar. And it's all maltodextrin, which is a super fast digesting, technically complex carbohydrate, which is kind of a garbage term anymore because nobody really cares if it's a complex carbohydrate or a sugar. They're all similar enough where they give you a similar, especially insulin reaction in your body. So it's kind of a garbage term anymore, but it still markets very well, and so they can use maltodextrin, which is basically just pure sugar, and market it as not sugar.
It's funny you bring that up because I don't even think about like complex carbs versus simple carbs at all anymore.
No,
like it's kind of like I just like pushed it to the back of my brain.
It's just carbs.
Yeah. And so I'll be talking to people about nutrition, and they'll go, "Well, I'm doing good because I'm eating complex carbs," and I go, I'm like, what are complex? Like, what foods fall in that category for me? Like, I used to know and I used to care, and like I just don't. It just doesn't matter.
It's not relevant
so much
anymore.
that I just totally don't even think about it anymore. So people start talking about like, is it simple or complex carb? I go, well, why?
Like, who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's interesting. So
it reminds me of Suzanne Summers. Yeah, I'm gonna say this. Everybody remember who Suzanne Summers, right, from the Three's Company. I remember she was on TV one time selling a nutritional book. Obviously ridiculous, but she said that the key to my diet. This is Suzanne Summers speaking. The key to my diet,
not nutritionist.
Yeah, the key to my diet is that you don't want to eat anything that turns to sugar in your body because sugar makes you fat. Like, oh, you don't want to eat anything that turns to sugar in your body. That's a short list of things, I guess.
Good advice, I guess. What was she suggesting after that?
She's like, eat potatoes and stuff because they're blah blah blah. It went on that line of thinking.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were saying.
So for the record, the complex carbohydrates are just sugars all linked together, and they get cleaved off the end one by one, and then just turn back into.
I think her angle is more like. You don't want sugar in your body, period. And I started thinking, well, you have to have sugar in your body because you're going to die. Your brain's not going to work and all this kind of stuff. But interesting stuff, Suzanne.
Maybe not. But.
Technically, it can run on ketones, so you don't have to have sugar. Anyways.
You have essential fats and essential proteins, and if you don't have those, then you'll die. But there's no essential carbohydrates. You can go carb free forever, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Might not feel great, but you won't die.
Man, I was gonna ask you something.
Think hard.
Well, I have a question.
Right
Sure.
there. Go on.
Is there a difference between, like, I heard of a couple of years ago during the faction games, I saw a purple sweet potato for the first time.
Yeah.
And somebody was saying, well, this is way better than eating a regular sweet potato or a potato. I mean, is there really, what's
Like
the
flavor?
I
or
really-
No, not flavor.
I know they're delicious.
As far as like,
They are good.
As far as the carbohydrate content goes, I really have no idea on the difference between purple and orange sweet potatoes. You know, there probably is some difference. I mean, something's coloring the
Right.
vegetable,
I guess
so
I
there's
guess
a difference there.
I think maybe the lack of beta carotene. Maybe it doesn't have as much beta carotene. Or maybe they're concerned they're getting too much of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just a shot in the dark.
I mean, you're right. Beta carotene's a pigment, and it will turn things orange, and something else is turning it purple. So maybe it just has way more of something else turning it purple, or none of that, and whatever else is making it orange. So there's a difference there, but it's probably more like a phytochemical type difference, and not necessarily a carbohydrate difference. I'm guessing. I really don't know.
I was wanting to bring up. You were talking about how a lot of the complex carbs won't be classified as sugars on a food label.
Mm-hmm.
As I was just wanting you to kind of point it out that just because it doesn't say sugar on there doesn't mean that it's not going to turn into sugar. Like it's immediately, like those carbohydrates might be listed as non-sugar carbohydrates, but as soon as you ingest it, it's sugar. I think that's obvious to most people listening. But
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think about carbs being, again, like, you know, good carbs being complex or starchy, and sugars being single molecules being any worse for you. Like how I define good carbs versus bad carbs is, you know, I think of the carbohydrates kind of essentially being the same for the most part, which is kind of a generalization. It's not 100% true every time, but the carbohydrates are roughly the same, and what makes it a good carb or a bad carb is what comes along with those carbohydrates. So if it's a very natural source, we're talking about the sweet potatoes, there's other vitamins, minerals, enzymes, anti-cancer, antiviral nutrients, like things that can help your immune system and ward off disease. And there's all these other things that come along with it. When you get a processed carbohydrate, they get filtered out or changed or destroyed by heat treating and processing and milling and all these other things that happen to processed carbohydrates. So you're left with pure carbs in a lot of cases, like if you're looking at, regular white sugar, but you don't have any nutrients at all to come along with it. So that's what really makes a good carb or a bad carb for the most part, in my opinion. And granted, there's still a difference between glucose and fructose and things like that. But I think first and foremost, you need to think about, are you getting anything positive coming along with it? Because all those other micronutrients are actually what helps you in your body process those nutrients and store that, in your muscles or somewhere where it's needed, and not just being like, well, we don't have all the micronutrients that process these additional calories, and so we'll just store them until we have those nutrients for later, and then you basically just put them into storage, which means you're storing those body fat. So
going to a question that Brad submitted to me, he's talking about carb cycling works really well for him. And maybe go into what carb cycling, like a really quick explanation, and talk about like how all that applies to carb cycling, how you would carb cycle in a clean manner.
Yeah, there's a lot of different theories on how you should carb cycle. How I tend to carb cycle is, similar to what Vaughn was saying earlier about just having a workout drink. So I eat paleo pretty much all the time, and then the days where I train, I have a workout drink. So I had extra carbs that day because I had carbohydrates in my workout drink. And if I trained twice that day, then I had 2 workout drinks that day, and so I had even extra carbs on that day. So by having a workout drink, you're kind of automatically carb cycling because you're getting more carbohydrates the more you train. And if you don't train that day, then you ate paleo all day. So if you ate meat and vegetables all day and didn't have any dense source of carbohydrates, then that was your low carb day. So I think that's the easiest way to carb cycle kind of naturally, without being like, on Monday I'm gonna have a high carb day, and Tuesday's gonna be a medium carb day, and Wednesday I'm gonna have a no carb day, and Thursday I'm gonna have a medium carb day again. And
you get caught in the trap of thinking too much about when you're going to manipulate what, and you lose sight of the reason you were going to carb cycle to begin with, right? To support the level of activity you were going to do that day. So it's probably a brilliant example of a more intuitive, more effective way to approach a problem like that. What's the most simple way you can think about it? Well, I'll eat more carbs when I need them. All the other theories are necessary.
Yeah, there's no reason to be on a high carb day on the day that you're primarily sedentary.
And if you are, you're thinking about, I'm going to manipulate things based on some hunch I have versus just following what you likely will need. The rationale is completely different and probably much more effective if you just do that simple path.
Yeah, you tend to tolerate carbohydrates a lot more effectively right after training. So as far as studies go, they'll look at two groups of people, say there's 100 people in each group, and they take one group and they train, and then they have a carb protein drink right after they train, like 0 minutes post-workout. And they take the other group, they do the same training session, and then they wait 2 hours, and then they have the exact same workout drink or post-workout drink. And then the rest of the day, they're on the same diet roughly. So they're on isocaloric diets, which means they're having the same number of calories throughout the day and the same number of calories post-workout. But the only difference is that one group had it 0 minutes post-workout, and the other group had it 2 hours post-workout. And the group that had it 0 minutes post-workout tends to store more carbohydrates in their muscles. They'll take muscle biopsies and they'll measure the amount of muscle glycogen in the muscle. They'll have more in the 0 minutes post-workout group, more storage in the muscle than the other group that waited 2 hours. Even on the same number of calories, they're getting more faster, more efficient recovery. And kind of the assumption there as well, if you're not taking those calories and storing them, where needed, which would be your muscle glycogen, then there's plenty of other places in your body that you use carbohydrates. All your cells can benefit from having at least a little bit. But the assumption there is, well, if it didn't go to the muscle, then you're storing it as body fat for later. So there's a nutrient partitioning benefit to having carbohydrates very close to your workout, and the rest of the day you just don't tolerate them and use them as effectively. You're more likely to get fat if you're having your carbohydrates at other times of the day.
Exactly what I wanted to hear. Awesome. I think everyone out there in iTunes land has been informed. I think it's great. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to let Vaughn have the last topic, and just training for ultras. Someone submitted a question about training for ultras without injury, and I think we kind of covered that and how we program for you.
Don't run.
Mm-hmm. But I want you to tell us why you think that you stay injury free quite a bit compared to other runners.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, because I don't run as much, and in particular, the people that are asking this question on Facebook, I know they run too much, right? They're trying to go to all the weekly group runs and train CrossFit on the same day. Come in the next morning. I just ran 15 miles last night. Well, you should have stayed home. Or stop running. So
they'll do 15 miles multiple days a week.
Right. And then wonder why am I so drained? Why can't I train properly at the gym? And why does my knee hurt? Why does my ankle hurt? And then they end up out for 3-4 days because their knee's messed up or whatever it is, and they're just running too much. In my opinion. What was the second thing? There were two things I said. The second thing is technique, right? So we spent a lot of time on pose running in the very beginning when I first started training with you guys, and I think that helped me immensely. Because I'm not like the best pose runner during the race, but I think that foundation has switched me from heel striking into a more forefront landing to where I don't have those heel injuries. I don't wake up in the morning and I can't walk because my heel hurts so bad and that kind of thing. So
not even just your heel, but if you're heel striking, you're putting a lot more negative forces on your knee and your hip and your lower back, and everything really. Right.
So don't run so much, and look into pose running, because those two things are going to be huge for you.
Something you brought up I thought was really interesting was it's like they're doing CrossFit and then they're going off and doing someone else's running program.
Right.
What we offer is comprehensive programming, and if you do this with anybody, it's not just us. You take any two different training programs and you're just going to put them together arbitrarily. That's not smart.
Right.
Like, I know people who will blend like CrossFit football with CrossFit endurance or something. Like, I'm like, no.
Do one
program that there is a rationale behind the program comprehensively. Like you can't just take random things and throw it together. I know it sounds like, I don't know. I guess some people think that sounds good. Like, let's just throw random programs together and see what happens.
Well, it's hard for people that have been running for so long. You just can't get it out of their brain that they don't need to run all those miles. You know, so it's really hard for them to come into an environment like we have and give that up. You know, like just stop doing it. Just stop.
I remember talking to a guy who'd been a long time endurance athlete. He's probably in his late 40s or maybe 50s now, and we were suggesting to him that he can cut his volume down, and he took it as, hey, old man, that stuff doesn't work. And he's like, no, like I've seen it work for so many people for 20 or 30 years. Like, you can't tell me it doesn't work. I've seen it work so many times. And after I kind of having that realization, like he felt like I was telling him everything he knows is totally wrong. I came back and I said, we're not saying that what they do with super high volume training doesn't work at all, because a lot of people have had success with it. What we're saying is that you don't necessarily have to do that. And if you take this lower volume approach, you can still train to have that capacity. You can train to work on your speed, which is very important, because usually running faster gives you a bigger range of motion, and you're potentially training different fiber types in a lot of cases. So the training of intervals affects your body in a lot different way than just training the same pace all the time and trying to run longer and longer and longer with it. And then in addition, what we're talking about today was having low volume training keeps you from being injury free. Mm-hmm. So we're saying you can train for that capacity without having as high of a risk potential. And then when you're 45, you don't have to have both knees replaced. Right. Which a lot of those guys that, you hear about those guys that ran a marathon every day for 2 years, and then they got nasty problems when they're older. So especially for those of us that our sole goal in life isn't to, win this one race I'm preparing for 2 years from now, and we're trying to race and have a good time with it and enjoy yourself along the way without only focusing on winning and then having a life afterward. I think the lower volume approach is a smarter way to go about it. Yeah, and I also get the benefit of being able to stay strong and get stronger, which is huge for me because I really have come to like that. So running all those miles.
Strength is awesome.
Right. No doubt. It's
fun to be strong.
Yeah.
It is.
For sure. All right, guys. I think that's about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't leave anything out.
I'm going to plug my website.
No doubt.
LiftHeavyRunLong.com.
LiftHeavyRunLong.com.
That's right.
It should be Lift Heavy, Run Long sometimes. Probably not very often, but sometimes.com.
Yeah, so if you want to see how Vaughn trains, it's basically the program we were just talking about on the show. If you go to that website, you'll be able to see what he's doing. He doesn't just post his training; he also posts,
race reports and whatever comes.
Yeah, what all do you post there?
Well, I've got an athletes page, which I'm trying to put together of runners who can also who can finish a 50-mile race and deadlift 400 plus pounds. So that's just some goal that I came up with.
Do you scale that for women? Do you have like a women's group that can deadlift 250 or something?
I've been asked that question, but I haven't come across any women that want to be on the page. So gotcha. if there is a woman out there that wants to be included on that page, we can definitely scale that. I'll probably get Mike to help me figure out the weights on that or something. Like what's the women's equivalent of a 400-pound deadlift?
It usually, the standard like CrossFit deal is like 70%.
Okay.
So
anyway, come to that website and follow me on my journey to be the fastest and strongest distance runner in the world.
Very good.
Very cool.
Got anything, Doug?
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't been watching all the technique wads from the very beginning before we started editing them into the show, be sure to go to the technique wad tab at the top of fitter.tv and start going through the kind of the backlogged older technique wads where we talk about weightlifting and squatting and deadlifting and all the stuff that we haven't really talked about a whole lot on that page lately. That way you can be up to speed for all the episodes in the future. Like,
yeah.
Chris Moore blog.
Nice plug, dude.
Oh yeah, the Chris Moore blog where you can see all the nice infographics, right?
Yeah, thechrismooreblog.com. A nice mix of things that I know and things that occur to me. I put them up there. You can read them and consider them.
I enjoy your blog.
I do too.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And make sure to go to FITR.tv. Already kind of talked about that earlier in the show.
FITR.TV.
If you can't
pronounced
find it.
fitter, get it?
Anyways, make sure to check that out. Am I forgetting anything, Doug?
Yeah, if you're on fitter.tv, be sure to sign up for the newsletters off the right side of the screen. Put your name and your email in. That way you'll stay up to date with all the new things that we're offering. When we have new shows come out, whether it's Barbell Shrugged or Technique Wad or new products, we send out an email and let y'all know about that. That way you can stay up to speed with everything that we're doing.
And give us your feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's something I forgot to put on the front of the show.
Damn.
Give us your feedback. Ask us questions, and we'll do our best to make sure you are kept up to speed.
I really do think that makes the show better because the last few shows we've gotten questions, and I think that helped develop the show into something that people actually want to hear. So, what are you looking at? Get off the nuts. All right. See y'all next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
My nuts.
Yeah,